Hello and welcome to this week's video on My Hero Academia. This week I'm reviewing special episode 2 of volume 3 of Vigilantes. You know how this works by now, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below, and you will be read out in next week's show. Whilst you're there, be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell and do all the YouTube stuff that YouTube wants you to do, because YouTube is an increasingly scary place for small content creators. Support your local small content creator today, it will do them a power of good, and hip hip hooray, we've hit 100 subscribers. Hooray! Now it would be great to properly break this number, maybe get to 105, maybe even 110 by the end of the year, because, sometimes profiles get banned or blocked or dropped by YouTube. So, just for the sake of safety, because I really don't want to be going back down to double digits anytime soon, like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. With all that said and done, let us get on with the review, and we start off, as we often do, with the positives. And this week, starting out with the headlines, as we often do. The headlines for this week's review are that this is a fun little side story that once again gives us a nice insight into the way this world works, and lets us see a side of a character from the main series that we don't often get to see. Note, this is me saying that we get to see a side of that character that we don't get to see that much of, because, they are a main character of the main series, and we do see them quite a lot. This is the second special episode that once again feels like, well, it is very much still taking place post the B incident from the instant villain stuff from previous volume. This is an episode which definitely feels very much like a part 2 to the previous episode. If this was an anime, you could quite easily have this being the second part of that. It just concludes and continues on with the thought processes from last week. However, now it's done from the point of view of the #1 hero in Japan, All Might, as now he's getting told how things are now going to have to be, with the results of the previous meeting seemingly being do more paperwork, with that being the grand solution to things. The whole deal of, hey, maybe you stop and wait a second to make sure that the people that you're about to be beat up aren't innocent civilians. Don't worry about that, just do extra paperwork after the fact. Which, the paperwork stuff does make sense from a legal point of view, because, the heroes would have to detail their rationale for doing what they did when the hero and villain stuff was going down. Though I do feel that it is one of the things it is asking a bit much of them. For a hero like All Might, it might not be possible, both in terms of practical and personal terms, as he explains in the episode itself, but more on that in a moment. For it is ultimately another episode I should say, about legal matters and work meetings, I do feel that for the casual observer, this is the better episode. We have a neat little opening action sequence and an opening gow with All Might there at the farm, consuming enough dairy to kill me. We have the whole press junket bit when he ends up returning to the agency, with the press asking him questions which feel, well, pretty bloody authentic for these kind of press junket things. If you've ever seen a press briefing for a celebrity, entertainment figure, or a politician, some of the kind of questions that he's getting asked are the kind of random assortment of crap that you'd expect from these kind of things. Some are relevant to what he's just done, questions about the rescue, some questions are about random politics, some of them are just a gag about trying to trick him into some kind of deal or another. And yeah, the one where they're asking about education is some very heavy foreshadowing for when he becomes a teacher in the main series. But, it all works. There's a slight satirical edge to this whole sequence of events. Not to quite the extent I would like it, being that I am a big fan of Paul Verhoeven's movies, and I kind of like that satirical edge that he brought into many of his films. And I do feel that it's an angle that My Hero Academia could do with in some areas, but you know what, this is a nice little bit of a flavour of it. That whole opening sequence and that press junket that we get, it feels authentic, and the kind of questions that the journalists are asking are the kind of questions that journalists would be asking. Some relevant, some not, some kind of scummy, but hey-ho, that's how all this kind of stuff goes. Though to be fair, though, the scummy question wasn't technically a journalism question, it was a case of, oh, All Might, can you sign this t-shirt for me? And this contract, and that's it. It's obvious they're going to trap him into something, but they don't, because it's just a gag. I have to say that the short little action sequence we get towards the start of the episode was fun for what it was. It was totally nuts and sillying away that the main series just wouldn't get into, which is something I've said in the past, something I do really like about Vigilantes, is the fact that it is just so willing to just get into some really nutty and wild and crazy action sequences, like the whole cat bus thing from a couple of weeks back. You know, this week what are we dealing with? It's a villain whose superpower allows him to control cows. An army of cows who are going to do cow things and charge up and down the fields and cause a rumpus. And he has a couple flunkies to act as his hype squad and hype him up, you know. I will admit that from a pure artistic point of view, it's not the strongest action sequence in this series. Whilst the artwork itself is done very well, I do feel that it does suffer from the fact that the panel work is rather small. Like, I get it, it's supposed to be just this quick fire thing, this whole action sequence isn't supposed to be a focus of the episode going forward, and, you know, these are special episodes, these are things that were released as part of other events, so, you know, it's just additional information. It's not really an action sequence thing, but even still, I feel that the panels were just too small, and the artwork felt a bit too compressed for me. They get across what they need to, but I think it is a wasted opportunity, bearing in mind the big villain for this episode is a guy that controls cows! I will do say that on a positive, as far as we're talking about the artwork is concerned, I really do like the artwork of All Might when he's in his true non-hero form. He looks so incredibly frail, far more so in the main series. I guess it's just a design choice that just never really translated into the anime. I mean, here he just looks so gaunt and lifeless. Like, there isn't a narrative decision to make him look more terrible in this. It's just the fact that the artwork here looks far better than it does in the main series. Far better than it does in the anime. He just doesn't look like he could stand. It looks like his own clothes are weighing him down, like a good stiff breeze will just cause him to fly away. Like Mr. Burns in the bloody Simpsons series. Like, we know why he is this way. We know why he is so physically frail when he isn't in his superhero form. And, you know, because of the fact that he can't be All Might all the time, he has to act as his own personal assistant and take on the kind of meetings that he has to do in the episode itself. And to add an extra layer to all of this is that he isn't even his main personal assistant when he's pretending to be his personal assistant. He's noted as being the second-class clerical department assistant. He's not even the main guy. He's like his personal assistant's assistant. Which is just kind of sad, you know, in a way. Like, already he can't be a hero anymore because of his injuries, so he has to pretend that he's somebody else. Whenever there's a meeting like this and he physically can't attend the meeting as All Might, he has to attend it as his second-class assistant. Not even like his personal assistant, the clerical assistant. The second-class clerical assistant. So he probably has a boss that he has to work under. Which is just kind of sad. The greatest hero that Japan has ever seen, or at least the number one hero at the time that this series goes out. And he just kind of has to use cloak and dagger tactics because he doesn't want people to know that he's kind of terminally ill. That he physically can't be a superhero for more than a couple hours without it nearly killing him. And there is a line that when he does reveal, I'm All Might's second-class clerical assistant, and he says the line, "Oh, I don't get much work," which indicates that All Might doesn't really have much of a life outside of being a hero. For him, being a hero is all that he does, and in this episode we kind of see why. We get that fun little montage where he's bouncing back and forth to have to save all these people. He's supposed to be having this meeting with the detective, but then all of a sudden he hears someone going, "Oh no, there's a car accident!" And he goes, I'll be back in a moment, I just need to go to the toilet. Disappears, comes back. Oh, so anyway, what were we saying? Oh no, there's a fire! Oh, my stomach's gone running, and he has to go and keeps doing that, and you know, that whole sequence, I will admit, it does feel like something out of a sitcom. And in that regard, it's a fine gag, having him flying back and forth from the meeting, pretending he's got problems with his guts. That's fine, it's a cute little gag, but there is still the element of tragedy there because of the fact that All Might as a character, as we know from the main series, and as is illustrated in this particular episode, really just wants to be a hero. He just wants to save people's lives. He wants to be that inspirational figure, but he physically can't anymore. He's trying his best to do so, but he's struggling with it, and the whole sequence illustrates that fact quite clearly. Whilst he isn't quite as bad as we see him towards the start of the main series, it does illustrate the fact that, you know, to be blunt, he is on his way out and he's starting to reach the limits of how long he can use his superpower. So when he ends up getting told, oh yes, All Might's going to have to do more paperwork, it puts the fear of God into him, because he knows that's going to limit the amount of time that he can be a superhero even longer due to bureaucracy. So there he is, just trying to save as many people's lives as he can, but, oh, hang on a minute, I need to do the paperwork. But it would either mean that he... Actually, yeah, that's just the thing that just triggered with me just for a sec, that in order for him to do the paperwork, he would have to do it as his, like, alter ego, the second clerical assistant. But because he's doing that, it would mean that All Might the hero would suddenly vanish, and people would be asking, oh, where's All Might? He should be out saving people. When we know that he can't be out saving people because he's doing the paperwork. And if he goes out saving lives, he can't do the paperwork, and people are asking, why hasn't he done the paperwork? I thought he had an assistant to help him out with that. We should fire that assistant for not doing his job. But of course, it all works out well in the end. It all works out in the end due to, like, sitcom logic. He accidentally tricks the police and the detective into doing his paperwork, as seemingly was the plan of the guy running that hero agency thing. Which is fine. It's a fun gag. I like the direction of it, but I will admit that it is an episode which, underneath the comedy, there is an element of tragedy there because of the character of All Might. He's a guy that loves being a superhero. He loves saving the day. He loves making people's lives better, but he has received a horrific injury that means he can't, and the world at large does not know that he has this horrible injury. So he's just trying to hold things together as best as he can do, and shouldering all that pain and depression on his own. It cuts for a very tragic figure. You got the moment where it looks like he's just about to burst into tears when he's told you're going to have to take time out to do paperwork, which is itself sad. And you've got the whole image where he's bouncing back and forth between the saving people's lives, and he's coming back in, like, still in his office clothes but with the superhero costume underneath it, and he's still carrying the little pussy cat that he's just saved, and it's cute, but at the same time tragic, mostly due to the fact that we know just how much All Might is suffering at this particular point in his life. But, you know, as a whole entity, that whole stuff, just, it's good. I'm reluctant to say that I enjoyed it because it's all about human misery, and when I get into that kind of stuff, people start to think I'm a bit of a psychopath. But with that said, let us get into the negatives, and without just repeating what I said last week, which is that I feel that this episode should be more canon than it is, like with last week's episode. I mean, if this ever was to get an anime, which I'm not entirely sure of at this point, I personally think it will do, for reasons I've mentioned in the past, but, you know, you never know with these things, that I think that this episode and the previous one should be an episode in the main series. You can, if you just put it in somewhere in last season, just pad that out a little bit. They're going to end up padding it out with a few filler episodes anyway, include this as being one of them. I don't think this should be an OVA, because I think that given all the stuff that we learned in this episode and the previous one, it would be really silly to do so, but, you know, that's all stuff that I discussed last week. But with all that said, there is a part of me that feels that almost everything that we saw in this week's issue could have been in the previous one. Yes, it would have made it a bit longer, but there is a good section of this episode where it does feel like it's repeating a lot of information that we have already learned. I will admit that I'm not sure exactly how this was released in relation to the previous one. Had there been a week or more between the two of them, sure, that's fine. You can understand there being the slight reprisal there. But with that said, it does feel like we have this really fun, if short and silly action sequence at the end. We have the neat stuff with All Might towards the end of the episode and the ending gag with that. But there's this slight slice in the middle of it where it's just learning stuff that we learned last week, but from a slightly different point of view, which does feel like it's taking oxygen from stuff that we already know about. Like, I know some people, they binge read these. Even me, just reading them weekly, you know, Even I remember it, but whatever. I feel that it could have just been part of something bigger. Again, you could easily put these two as a single episode if you'd ever to animate them. But still, with all that said and done, let us get into the overview. And I will say that I did enjoy this episode quite a lot for what is ultimately, you know, a bit of a filler episode, something that's put at the end of a volume. I did enjoy it quite a lot. I don't think it has quite the same level of world building the previous one did, but it has better character development, a better understanding of characters from the main series than that previous one did. I do admit that it maybe needed a little bit something else to go into it, maybe, I don't know, I really don't know. I did enjoy what we got here, the insight into All Might and just seeing how he has been struggling to, you know, be the hero that he wants to be and living with the condition that he has is decent. Maybe it's played a little bit too much of a gag, but, you know, it works for what it is. But all that said and done, I did enjoy it quite a lot. And with all that said and done, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner, and kicking us off once again, it's Big X1 who says, Midnight is the perfect for villain attacks like this. I presume they mean the perfect hero for villains like this, villain attacks like this, or perfect solution. Either way, they worked fantastically. Yes, they're kind of written to as per the gag that's written in the episode, but you know how it worked. Boob saved the day. You've read it. I don't need to go into the whole geometry of how it worked, but it worked well. I will admit there's a part of me that still can't get over the fact that Endeavour, a hero whose superpower is fire, thought that using fire on a guy that's covered in explosives was a good idea, but, you know, that's kind of the gag there. He's rash, impetuous, he's Endeavour. That's what he does. He sets fire to things and ruins everything, so totally keeping with his character, but you know what, that's part of the gag, and it was a fine ending gag for the whole chapter. Next up we have Taken Name, who says, this chapter could definitely have fitted in with the others instead of as a special. I read my manga volumes all at once when I get it, but these episode by episodes of reviews are good as well. Thank you for the comment. When I do these episode reviews, I do it every episode by episode. I do full chapter reviews, as you have seen, well, not few chapter, full volume reviews of the whole volumes, which, given that you've left a comment on all the My Hero Academia Vigilantes reviews that I've done so far, you're well aware of. I'd like to do it episode by episode because it allows me to go into greater detail on the episodes themselves, and well, of course, let's face it, it helps give me content to keep this channel ticking over, because I think we're reaching the point where I have done a video every week for the past year, which is truly an achievement by me. It's something I've always wanted to do with other series. I've always had stuff planned out, but this is the first time I've actually been able to do it. But anyway, with all that said and done, thank you all for your comments, thank you all for your likes, thank you all for your subscriptions. By all means, continue doing those things in the comment section down below. Like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, you know how it works by now. With all that said and done, thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!